Welcome to Soccer in 60, presented by the Empire Strykers. Get ready for your weekly look at all the pro soccer teams in Greater Los Angeles. We've got all the news and analysis you need, from LAFC and the LA Galaxy to the Empire Strykers, Angel City FC, and Orange County Soccer Club. Now, buckle up and enjoy Soccer in 60.
Buckle up indeed. Welcome to the fastest paced soccer podcast in SoCal. This is Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System, covering all the week's news, highlights, and more from LAFC, the LA Galaxy, Angel City FC, Orange County Soccer Club, and of course, the major arena soccer league zone, Empire Strykers. Hello and welcome. I'm JR Liebert, affectionately known as a Scarf. And don't adjust your sets. It's not two of us to kick off the show today, but three. You know my man, Timmy K, Tim Kolotz. And right underneath both of us here on the screen, soccer writer, sports writer extraordinaire for the LA Times and more, Mr. Kevin Baxter. Tim, Kevin, welcome and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are we doing today, Scarf?
Man, it has been a good morning. We've already had Will Kuntz, who did a very early morning interview with us as well. So lots to get to. And first, let's get to paying our bills first with our friends over at Omnitrans. In partnership with the Empire Strykers, experience the thrill of game day with Omnitrans. Be in the heart of the action at Toyota Arena and let Omnitrans take care of the ride. Simply download the Transit app to catch your bus and enjoy a stress-free trip to cheer on the Strykers. Don't miss out on all the excitement and make every moment count at Toyota Arena. Ride with Omnitrans to your next Empire Strykers game. And once again, Galaxy General Manager Will Kuntz. We really want to thank him for taking some time. It was a rough result yesterday. We'll get to that with both Kevin and Tim. We had a good conversation with Will about all the things going on over in Galaxy. But now, let's talk about Angel City. Let's get right into it. And a couple of transactions before we get into a massive win for Angel City last week. And Kevin, a bit of a surprise. Alana Kennedy and Katie Zalem both shipped off to London City of the Women's Super League. These women are extremely experienced. Their resumes kind of speak for themselves. What does it mean that they made this move, especially with Alana Kennedy, such an experienced center back going all the way through the Matildas? I mean, almost 180 caps. What does it mean that they made this move right now in moving Alana Kennedy?
Well, I guess what we have to do is guess at this point. I mean, I'm thinking immediately with Katie Zellum, she is from England. Maybe she got a little homesick. We've seen that with other players. We've seen that with Steven Gerrard going back. With Alana Kennedy, she is also an international player. I don't know what her experience was in the U.S., or whether Angel City just needed the transfer money, just needed the fees. But I think that these moves leave a big hole in the team in a number of different ways. Alana Kennedy was fourth on the team in minutes. That means you're going to have to pick up those minutes somewhere. Excuse me. Katie Zong was had 2 goals, but that's tied for third on the team. So a team that's not scoring, you trade away a player who's scoring. Claire Emsley is out now on maternity leave. And we haven't seen Sydney LaRue at all this season. So there is and so Alana Kennedy and Katie Zellum Katie Zellum was a captain at Manchester United. So now you're missing your veteran leadership with Emsley out, and Christian Press, who's already been acting as a leader, been doing a great job as a mentor. Some of the women tell me that they really appreciate what she's brought to the team. I guess she's going to have to step up even more, and she's been doing a lot of work in that department already. She's going to have to step up a little bit more, but I just don't think this is good news with 9 games left and Angel City pushing for a playoff spot to lose not only that the contributions on the field, but the contributions in the dressing room.
Yeah, totally understand, especially with Katie. Let me ask you this quick question too. Was she squeezed out because of her lack of offensive production, do you think? I mean, I know you mentioned she might have been a little homesick, but just 2 goals in 25 total matches with Angel City. But like you said, tied for third on the club in goals. Was it maybe looking for offense from some another place to give more minutes somewhere else?
Well, I have to think perhaps maybe Alexander Strauss wants to go in sort of a different direction as far as the way he plays technically. That's kind of been the big change since June. When they brought Katie in, it was much ballyhooed signing again, a Manchester United captain. It was supposed to be a big move, and it just didn't work out. Angel City's gone through a few players now that they brought over from Europe and were supposed to make big contributions and really didn't work. June Endo is back now. Maybe although she missed the last game with injury, she's back now. Maybe it's just going to change the way they play. And they just felt like, look, here's a high priced player who's probably going to be on the bench most of the time. Maybe we can get something for her by sending her away. The Alana Kennedy one doesn't make sense in any way because she was contributing and playing a lot of minutes, and she's going to leave a big hole.
Yeah. So with that, Kevin, I was thinking about this as you were answering. With this big hole, does this leave room for Alex Strauss to bring in more of the people that he wants on his team versus what he acquired, what was part of the deal when he came in to be the coach?
Well, this is something unique to soccer, I think, that when a coach or general manager or anyone comes in, they bring their own people. We see that in other sports, but generally it's like coaches and front office people. In soccer, you bring in whole new swath of players who play your style. And Alexander Strauss now has been here for 2 months, and I think he's starting to get a little over 2 months, starting to get his feet wet. And I do think he's beginning to look around and see like this is not working. The hole's over here. I need to fill that. So that could be part of it. It feels like it's happening too late to save this season. We'll see. They've still got 9 games to go. But yeah, I mean, that's where it does make sense that they need. Alexander wants them to play his style, and that's a particular kind of style and needs a particular kind of player, and they're not doing that right now.
Well, you look at this big win. You had the new goalkeeper, Hannah Siebert, comes in. She gets the second shutout in a row against Orlando, right? So it's working so far, at least from the goalkeeper perspective of people who Alex is bringing in, right?
Well, yeah, since that break, I mean, they're unbeaten in their last 3, but they have dropped 21 points in their last 9 games. And sure. Right now they're two places out of a playoff spot, but only 1 point out. So that's good. They 1 point and they could be in a playoff race, but there are 5 teams within 4 points of one another fighting for that last playoff spot. So you have to not only win your games or at least draw your games, but you have to worry about what those other 4 teams are doing. So it's going to be a very interesting going down the stretch. I think one of the questions that you guys had posed earlier is the playoff and important making the playoffs, is that a must have? Yes, it is. This team is in its 4th season, has 1 playoff appearance. It lost that game. It has a losing record overall. Yeah, I think they need to make the playoffs this season. And if for no other reason than to be relevant. I mean, the game against Orlando City, Angel City or the NWSL still has not announced the attendance figure from that game. And I don't know why that is, but the attendance was pretty small. It was probably the second smallest attendance in Angel City history. It was a Thursday night. It was a terrible night, to go out to a soccer match, but still, when Angel City started, it was this wonderful new team, empowering women and sort of standing for a lot of things in the community. We saw with the Immigrant City football shirts, they were the first ones out of the box to stand with the community when the ice raids were happening. Angel City is doing a lot of amazing things off the field. On the field, it feels like the bloom is off the flower a little bit. People are like looking around and saying, this team needs to win, and we need to score more than a goal a game with the kind of players that we have, the Thompson sisters, June Endo again. This is a team that needs to be a little bit more vibrant and exciting than it is. And I think the fans are starting to sort of speak with their wallets and saying, I'll stay home and watch the game on TV until you guys get good.
Look, I think we can all say, though, the first big step in the right direction was that win against the 3rd place Orlando Pride team that had been playing very well coming in. Thank goodness Alyssa Thompson kind of rescues 3 points there at the 86th minute. But more appropriately, since it's also the first win in the Alex Strauss era, shut out in half the matches he had coached in before that. How important was this first win? And more importantly, Kevin, are you seeing progress under Strauss? Do you see him kind of putting his thumbprint on this club more and more?
Well, obviously, his first win in the 7th game, he's won 3-3 since he came over. I kind of expected him to be a little more advanced at this time because when he came in, he had a couple of games and he had that long break. Remember there was the midsummer break, and he had a lot of time to work with his team in training. Unfortunately, a lot of players were injured, so he didn't really get to see his first team all together all that time. I think he's being very methodical, and he's a great coach. He has an amazing resume. I think we have to to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, obviously he knows what he's doing, but it feels as if he doesn't feel that urgency to make it happen right now. And I've talked to some of the front office leaders over there, and they've talked about that too. When they were looking for Strauss, they said, we're not going to just hire a coach and get players in here just to have a team on the field. We're going to get the right people. We're going to take our time. And if that means sacrificing the season, then we're going to sacrifice the season. Nobody likes to hear that. But in a sense, I understand what they're doing. Like, we're going to be here for years and years and decades. And what we do now in building this foundation. Remember, here's a team that's been through 3 coaches already, three general man. They're on the 3rd general manager, and they're in their 4th season, right? And so they haven't gotten it right yet. They haven't built that foundation. And I think that's what the new front office is saying. We're going to build this foundation. But unfortunately, I think they're beginning to lose the fans, because you are seeing attendance decline. You are seeing interest sort of fade with this team. And I think it's 2 things. I think, again, what they're doing off the field is tremendous, but they have to remember they're also a soccer team. And so they have to bring some of that excitement to the field. And A, they're not winning, and B, they're not scoring. And those are the 2 things I think fans come out to see.
Yeah, look, and the next chance that the fans will have Monday, September 1st at BMO Stadium against a club they've never beaten in Bay FC, both clubs battling for the playoffs. So we'll see if Angel City is able to keep that momentum going from the first win under the Alex Strauss era. Let's transition over.
Well, Scarf, before you go away, Monday, you just said Monday. One of the things with the problem with this NWSL TV contract, broadcasting contract with the 4 different entities, is everybody wants sort of their clear window. So, MLS figured it out with Apple and decided to go away from this, games on all kinds of different days. And NWSL is stuck in that. You talk about I talked about the lack of attendance at the Orlando City game. It was a Thursday. It's very tough. School started. It's tough to get out there. It's tough to get down to Center City, LA on a Thursday when you have school and work the next night. Now their next game, Bay FC, big game, rivalry, huge game in the standings and elsewhere on a Monday. I mean, they just can't seem to catch a break.
Yeah, on Labor Day, no less, too. A lot of people might be out of town with that as well. Look, a lot of people have been showing up at LAFC recently, obviously Heung-min Son Heung-min and everything going on with black and gold. But I think one of the biggest takeaways so far this season has been lack of depth on the back line, and that didn't get any better, Kevin, with the sudden retirement, although no surprise if you've been following the club for quite some time, of Maxime Chanot. Can you talk about what it means to lose a player the caliber of Maxime Chanot, both on and off the pitch?
Well, yeah, just as you said, didn't come as any surprise. I think LAFC has been sort of planning for this for a while. It hurts because they've already lost Aaron Long in the back line. That is one area they have a lot of. If you look at the roster, you look and say, wow, they have a lot of defenders. Yeah, but how many defenders do you have that you want to put out there and play 90 minutes right now in a push for the playoffs? So yeah, it hurts them from a depth perspective. I think they'll still be able to conjure up 4 guys who can go out there and start, but they're going to have situations now. They're coming up where they're going to have 4 games in 13 days in October. They're going to have a number of games in a tight window in September. They're going to need depth. And with both of those compact schedules, they have long breaks on both ends because of international breaks. And you talk to players and say, yeah, they go in that first game and man, they feel so fresh. And then maybe the second game, by the 3rd or 4th game, it still feels like you've played 4 games in 13 days. And you're going to need to run some new guys out there. And the depth just isn't there on the back line right now.
So I got a question for you. So we saw a little bit of this cycling through with new guys on the Galaxy in the Colorado game. We'll talk to them in a minute, but can LAFC do some of the same things, bring some of these guys up from their practice squads or the lower division squads to help fill that depth gap?
Yeah. Can they do it? Yeah. I mean, will it succeed? I don't know. I mean, one thing with LAFC, with the Galaxy is, those guys got a lot of playing time. If you remember early in the season, there were a lot of injuries with some Galaxy starters. And so a lot of those guys, Tucker Lepley and people like that, Harbor Miller, they got to play at the beginning of the season. And so they have gotten their feet wet a little bit. LAFC is not in the same position. They don't play the young guys to the same extent, although they have got some production from those guys. LAFC is much more of a veteran team, and I think they play in a veteran style. I just don't know if the fit is going to be. Certainly, that's something they can try. Just don't know if the fit's going to be there. And another thing is it's one thing to sort of put a young guy up on the front line, and this may sound really counterintuitive. You put a guy up on the front line, and sometimes the fact that they're not experienced and really, I don't want to say don't know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, but maybe not experienced. They do things that the other team is not expecting, and sometimes that's really beneficial. But you put a young guy on the back line. I mean, you're talking about the sort of the free safety, the last defense before the goalkeeper. You want a guy back there that's seen everything and done everything and knows everything. You don't want a guy kind of, freelancing back on the back line. So it's a different position. If you wanted to fill in maybe an attacking midfielder or a forward, yeah, that might work. That might actually be beneficial. On the back line, you want someone that's going to be rock steady, and the depth just isn't there right now.
Yeah, obviously really helpful to have a guy like Hugo Lloris in goal. Eddie Segura, by the way, second most capped player in LAFC history. He's seen a few things, so hopefully he can kind of take that leadership role. I do want to talk to you about Andy Moran, the 21-year-old Irish midfielder who they brought in. Look, this kid's been playing at a high level since 15 years old, played for Brighton at 17, 80 matches as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old over in the English Championship the last couple seasons. We've seen LAFC take a chance on youth from Europe in the past. It didn't work out with Krashtev. It didn't work out with Stipe Buke. But it really worked out with Mateusz Bogusz, who I know has been a big hole in terms of like that offensive production from the midfield spot. Is that what we can maybe expect from young Andy Moran as he comes over late in the season?
Well, I think he's going to get a lot of playing time. As we mentioned, there are fixture crunches coming up, and, midfielders run 10 kilometers a match sometimes. So they are going to need some guys, not just off the bench, but some guys to step in and start. So, yeah, I think that could be that could be very beneficial. The guy that's really changed the team, and you talked about him coming in, is Son. And the thing that I love about him, well, there's a lot of things I love about him. First of all, he is the first MLS player, major star from Asia to come over. And he's probably the best Asian player of all time. Captain of the South Korean national team, played 10 years at Tottenham in the English Premier League. I mean, this guy's the real deal. And we've already seen with his jersey sales and all that stuff that LAFC is completely sold out of jerseys. He's outselling Messi. He's outselling LeBron. He's outselling, Shohei Ohtani. He's outselling everybody. This is from a marketing perspective and a publicity perspective, and opening that Asian market, which MLS has been going after for sponsorships and TV forever. This is huge. It can't be overstated how big this is. For LAFC, it's big too, for a number of different reasons. We've already seen, first of all, he's played 90 minutes in 2 of his 3 games. In his 3 games, he's either scored or set up a goal each time. LAFC is undefeated with him since he's come over. But the way, and remember, he's still in preseason form. He was in training camp at Tottenham when he came over to LAFC. So we're not seeing the best version of him. But there are a couple of things that he brings that are really interesting. First of all, his chemistry with Boanga is tremendous. I just don't know that Olivier Giroud ever really kind of got on the same page with Boanga for a number of different reasons. Son is a really humble sort of guy who's willing to sort of step back and let Boanga be the star. I'm not sure Olivier Giroud ever really made that determination that he wanted to do that. And the reason I say that is, if in the first game, if you remember, Son came off the bench late, created a penalty. Boanga wanted him to take the shot. It was like, this is Boanga understood the moment. It's your first game. You set this up. It's your, you can tie the game. You're the guy. You're the guy we spent the $26 million plus transfer fee on. You step up and take that shot. And Son was like, you're the guy. You're the goal scorer for this team. I just got here. You take the shot. They actually argued about it on the field. And then Boanga went ahead and took the shot and scored. So to have a guy like Son, Tottenham's captain, come over here and say, no, you know what? You're the guy. I just showed up. You take the shot. That spoke volumes. The other thing that probably went under the radar for a lot of people, he threw out the first pitch at Dodger Stadium last night. They told him he was going to do that a couple of weeks ago. He practiced every day after training at LAFC. He got one of the staff members to act as a catcher, and he practiced that first pitch, He wasn't going to go on the field unprepared. And it's the same way that I think he approaches everything. He left Korea for Europe at 16 and learned English, right away, because he was preparing himself. He wasn't going to leave any stone unturned. He needed to talk to his coach, his teammates. He needed maybe to do media. Maybe he was thinking about that. But the fact is, he prepared to throw the first pitch. He prepared himself to go to England and be able to speak English and deal with his teammates and deal with society. This is a guy that he's prepared. He's the real deal. And LAFC is lucky to have him, not only for what he's going to do on the field, but you talk about the young players, guys coming up from the academy. They're going to look at this guy and say, man, that guy's put together. I want to be like him.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%, Kevin. Just the humbleness of that, coming in and saying, no, you take the shot. I mean, that's what leaders do. And he's a leader without having the captain's armband.
And I don't think he wants it. I think not right now, maybe next season or season after that. But right now he says, I just got here. I'm not the leader. I don't get the captain's armband. I don't know how this works.
Yeah, and look, this is why it's the fastest paced soccer podcast in the Southland, Soccer in 60. We didn't even have time to really preview the huge match against San Diego. We got to talk about Galaxy now, or else we run out of time for everything else. Look, it was we have a great interview coming up with Galaxy General Manager Will Kuntz, who talked to us about his thoughts on Leagues Cup and everything else. But I want to get your thoughts, especially on yesterday's match. This time a 2-0 loss rather than a 4-0 loss. But I think both Tim and I agree it could have been a little worse than 2-0 at the hands of Seattle. What are your impressions of the way that Galaxy looked in that semifinal?
You know what's really funny is the Galaxy have won 4 games. I think they played 27 in MLS. They've won 4 games. They won 3 games in Leagues Cup in 4 tries. So it's like it's really a Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing. What Galaxy you're going to get. But then when you break it down, you know what? Their first 4 games in Leagues Cup where they were unbeaten, all against Liga MX teams. Right. Then they play an MLS team, Seattle, and they kind of get run off the field. I mean, it really wasn't as close as 2-0. I think as you mentioned, Seattle was much better. I asked Greg Vanny about that last night. How can you be so good against Mexican teams we know that's a quality league and they played quality teams? How can you be so good against those teams? They averaged 3 goals a game. They scored 12 goals in the 4 games. And again, didn't lose, 3 wins and a draw. And then you come out and play Seattle and an MLS team. And again, you look just like you do in the regular season. You look horrible and you lose. Now, he talked about against Liga MX teams, they kind of tried to press, and the Galaxy were able to dominate certain parts of the field. He said in the case of Seattle, they just never gave them a break. And this is a team that takes advantage of mistakes. And the Galaxy made a couple and they were punished for them. They just didn't see that against the Mexican teams. And so I guess my thought would be maybe the Galaxy should join Liga MX. I think they'd win another championship.
Oh, that's going to be the soundbite. Christian, our tech guy, please make sure you clip that one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, that'll be the north of the border team. So
exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about, they're coming off of, you talked about tight windows with LAFC and you got a ton of games in just a very short amount of time. Same thing with Galaxy coming up, because not only do they have Orlando, but they also have the third place match coming up, and you're in the throes of the push to the playoffs for everybody else in MLS. How do you see coming off of this loss that could have been easily 4 or 5-0 to Seattle, but wasn't, about Orlando? How do you see that?
Well,
the Orlando game in the third place game.
Before we leave LAFC completely, remember they are in a playoff race too. They're 5th right now. They want to get into the top 4 to be at home. Mm-hmm. They have 2 games in hand in everyone in all the teams around them. So LAFC is in a great position. As far as the Galaxy go, you could hear the air come out of the balloon last night. The Galaxy are they are going to have the worst season in franchise history. The fewest wins, the most losses, fewest points. A year after, right now, it's 9 months after they won their 6th MLS Cup. So this is a disaster in many ways. They could salvage that if they had won Leagues Cup. And when they lost last night in the semifinals and were relegated to the 3rd place game, they weren't going to lift the trophy. And you could sort of feel that again, the air come out of the balloon with that. And Greg Vanny is trying to fire the team up. They are going to get Orlando at 2:00 on Sunday in the 3rd place game. That's important because the winner of that 3rd place game gets a invitation to the CONCACAF Champions Cup. The fourth place team, by the way, whoever loses, could also go if the three teams above them get into Champions Cup another way. For example, what if Seattle or Inter Miami win the Supporters Shield or win, MLS Cup? Then one of the other teams could move up and take that Champions Cup. So simply getting to the consolation final, if you want to call it that, could get the Galaxy into Champions Cup. But that they're trying to rescue, salvage something from the season. And Greg Vanny used that term, salvage the season, multiple times last night. And I think that's where he's going with this, with trying to get his team to go toward that and win something. But once that's done, they got to play out the MLS season, and they're probably going to win the wooden spoon. They're certainly not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to get anywhere close. In fact, they could be eliminated from the playoffs by the end of this month. I think within the next couple of weeks for sure. So after this third place game, there's nothing to play for. They have Campeones Cup. That's a glorified friendly, but there's nothing to play for. And you wonder how Greg Vanny is going to keep this team interested, in the last couple of months of the season. Maybe the only sort of drama left is, will Riqui Puig come back or not?
Yeah, it remains to be seen. Actually, that's something that later on in our show, stick around, make sure you listen to Will Kuntz, GM of LA Galaxy. He did talk about all of those things that you just brought up. So let me just make sure you get the soundbite right for you there, Kevin. If Galaxy are able to qualify for CONCACAF Champions Cup, whether it's backing in as the fourth place team or making it as the third place winner, is this then 2025 a successful season?
No, it's a disaster. It's still a disaster.
All right. Well, look, this has been soccer writer extraordinaire for the LA Times and more, Kevin Baxter. Kevin, we love you as part of the Soccer in 60 family. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Awesome. Well, hey, there's Tim. All right.
Hey, there I am.
Look, we got a lot more fun to talk about. That's why this is the fastest paced soccer podcast in the Southland. Empire Strikers talk coming up. And then, of course, we've got the interview with Will Kuntz. And one of the things that we've been doing, Tim, you and I, and Philly as well, over the past several weeks now, is taking a look back at the Empire Strikers players in kind of a season in review. And I think in many ways, the tip of the spear, the face of the franchise, has to be Justin Stinson. Look, I know Marco Fabian might get all the love because he's a gold medalist and has the history with Eltree and everything else. But if you talk to any of the thousands of people in Toyota Arena, match in and match out, I think all of them would tell you that they have a special affinity for a St. Louis kid who's become a hometown hero in Ontario, Justin Stinson.
Yeah, I think he's borderline getting to the Izzy Cisse level, right? He's becoming a legend here. And when you put up the numbers that he did last season, and not only that, we had him on the show. Philly and I interviewed him several months ago during last season. And the guy is just really well put together, and just some of the rainbow moves that he does, the umbrellas and stuff like that. It allows the kids to watch that up close and personal. And then not only that, does he lead, he's leading the team in goals, Golden Boot runner up with 32 goals, but he's also got 11. And for somebody like that to be that well put together and that much a team player and doing whatever it's going to take for the team, JR, it's really fun to watch. And it's very impressive as he's still a very young man.
Yeah, crossed the 100 appearance mark in a Empire Strikers shirt, crossed the 100 goal mark in an Empire Strikers shirt. Obviously, last year, you got to give kudos to Jeff Burham and everybody in the front office, where they, the season didn't go the way that they wanted it to last year. So they loaned him out to Tacoma so that he could make a bit of a playoff push for Tacoma. All he did was in 5 matches score 9 goals and have 4 assists. I mean, the guy is a walking cheat code out there, an incredible player. And look, really the face of this club moving forward. Another player, Tim, who made a lot of really great contributions after coming over in the Frank Taiu trade. I mean, you trade a legend like Frank Taiu. He came over with Mijatovic. was Quentin Swift, and really in 15 matches, just 2 assists, but all of the contributions that he made in the midfield. It was a strong season for Quentin for sure.
Yeah, and this is another guy that we've talked about. Several of these midfielders that come in and while they may not show up on the score sheet every night, they're definitely showing up on the coach's score sheet every night, because what Quentin Swift has done is just been a stalwart for the Strykers in that midfield and is shutting down plays. He's, you take that ball off the wall, that the other team's midfielder is going to do and trying to put it in the box, and Quentin's there to knock it down. He's able to get the outlet passes to a Marco Fabian, to a Justin Stinson, who's going to take it down and then make a play of it. And so, again, while he doesn't show up on the score sheet every night, definitely he is one of those guys where he's a very hard player to play against.
Yeah, and look, I think the evolution of the MASL is maybe the TST's effect on MASL, and you had Coach Onua Obasi winning the $1 million a couple of seasons ago in TST with Newtown Pride. If you look at who one of the midfielders was on that club, that's Swift, right? So maybe not only playing his way into a nice payday in that TST, but playing his way into a contract with the Empire Strykers. And look, you got to think too, not playing quite as much as he played in 23-24, right? 20 games in 23-24, just 15, and a little less production than he had the season before as well. You got to think this is going to be a motivated Quentin Swift coming into the 25-26 season.
I would think so. I think he was highly motivated, and you saw him out at the soccer camps that the Strykers put on. He was out there. He was having fun. He was great to be with his teammates and things like that. So I think that motivation will be there for him this coming season. I think it's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. Also awesome is when we get to pay our bills by talking about our good friends over at National Core. National Core, one of the nation's largest nonprofit affordable housing developers, and of course, a proud sponsor of your MASL team, the Empire Strykers. At National Core, they believe that soccer has the power to transform lives just like they do. They believe in building strong communities on and off the field. And to learn more about National Core and their mission, head on over to nationalcore.org. We were lucky enough early this morning, and by we, I mean our creative director, Gunnar, and I, to talk with LA Galaxy General Manager Will Kuntz. Not easy to do on a day after a big loss like that, but he did a wonderful job. He came on with us. We talked about all manners of things as the Galaxy look to close out their season as a high note. Tim, let's head on over to that fantastic interview with Will Kuntz right now. Our guest today is the general manager of the LA Galaxy, Will Kuntz. After stepping into the role late 2023, he helped deliver the ultimate prize, an MLS Cup at the end of his very first season in charge. And look, it can't be overstated what it says about Will that he has agreed to join us, not just in the midst of a challenging 2025 campaign, but it's 7:45 here in the morning when we are recording this. Will woke up early just to talk to us. And look, it was a bit of a rough loss against Seattle in Leagues Cup. Still plenty to play for the Galaxy, though, in Leagues Cup. That's what we call dedication, and that's why we are so happy to have with us LA Galaxy GM Will Kuntz. Will, welcome to the Soccer in 60 family.
Morning, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Look, good to talk to you, my friend. A tough performance against Seattle, second one in about 17 days. Look, we know you're not the coach. We know you don't score any goals, but, just talk to us about the performance last night, maybe especially versus the performance 17 days ago. Were there things that you can feel good going forward about last match that you can take away from moving forward against Orlando? What did you think about that performance against Seattle?
Seattle's a very good team. We were talking about it before we started the show, but they remind me a lot of the Patriots in the NFL. They're very good at taking away their opponent's strengths. They've got a just total team mentality, next man up mentality, and you can see that really on the run they've been on since the Club World Cup. I think they've hit another gear as a team. And so, we faced them 2 weeks ago, coming off the group stage of Leagues Cup, and we had a big emotional win over over Santos Laguna to move through to the knockout round. And I think we were hoping for a little bit of a different result from our guys physically, but they did a really good job of pressing us last night. And so we came out. I thought we fought pretty well, but just a few key mistakes in big moments, and that's the difference in a big game like that.
Yeah. Now, Will, you said it, a couple key mistakes in the game. I think the big thing after the MLS game against Seattle here recently was intensity. I think everybody kind of agreed that the team came out flat sort of from the beginning. What did you see in the game in terms of that? Do you feel like it was a step forward in that respect, at least?
Yeah, I think we did come out with a much better intensity. The way we pressed them at times in the first half, sort of night and day from what we saw 2 weeks ago. But look, the reality is when you're talking about a semifinal, it's not about intensity, right? It's about execution and attention to detail. And so, again, I do think we had a good effort, but they matched it, and I think they were a little sharper, a little cleaner on the day.
Now, to anyone who has ever seen a third place game in any competition, be it a World Cup or any other international competition, a lot of people think it's irrelevant. Like, why even tune in? Why watch it? Why go to the game? Can you explain to people why this upcoming third place game here in this competition is actually really important for the Galaxy?
I think the thing that differentiates the Leagues Cup third place game is the fact that there's a CONCACAF Champions Cup on the line. To your point, Gunnar, I think you see often in bigger tournaments, whether it's a World Cup or Euros, sometimes that third place game feels a little bit like a funeral. It's a really good chance to, I think, evaluate players on their their pride, their passion, their grit, what they bring into a third place game. But we have so much on the line, as does Orlando. Right, you win this game on Sunday, and you qualify for Champions League. And for us, in the course of a season that has been about as far away from the Galaxy standard and what we hope to deliver as you can get in the MLS League season, the fact that we have an opportunity to qualify for Champions Cup is massive. So we, I don't think it's an overstatement to say this is the biggest game of the year for us, and I think it's important, any fans of ours who are interested in watching this club compete at the highest level next year, it's all on the line on Sunday. And Orlando's a very good team. They don't have the star power of Miami, but they've got dangerous attackers like Pasalic and Angulo and Ojeda, Luis Muriel up top, a really solid defense, a great young outside back, and Alex Freeman. They're a dynamic, dangerous team. They're one of the best in MLS. And so we've got a heavyweight matchup with a massive spot in Champions Cup on the line on Sunday.
Yeah, Will, how important is it for the players, for the organization, for the supporters? How important is it for them to be able to take away something from, you mentioned it, it's been a rough 2025 season, to be able to qualify for CONCACAF Champions Cup, for it to still be in the realm of possibility? How important is that for the organization, for the fans, for the players? You tell me who it might be more supportive for, or important for, but how important is it for the organization?
It's massive. It's really huge. Again, certainly this season, it hasn't gone, like I said, the way we expected it to. And quite frankly, I think it's safe to say that the Galaxy fans not only expect, but deserve much more than a Champions Cup qualification out of a season, or a third place finish out of a season. But for us, it's so important that we have a chance to right this ship and then go into next year with a team that's strong enough to compete to be the best in the region and continue to show the world that, we are a big club and that we're trying always to compete at the highest level. And that means not just Champions Cup, but making a run in Champions Cup and having a deep enough squad to compete in MLS throughout the regular season and in the playoffs.
Yeah, and competing at the highest level obviously starts on Sunday. You mentioned the depth, the talent that's on the Orlando side of things. What kind of match are you expecting on Sunday? It's at home in your ballpark, Dignity Health Sports Park, on Sunday. What kind of match are you expecting?
I think it's going to be an old-fashioned street fight. You've got a team that lost, and I think they're going to feel Orlando as if they let one get away from them. they had really strong stretches of control at time in that game last night, and then it kind of got away from them late, especially after that red card. Maybe a penalty shot that didn't come. And so I think you're going to have a team that feels really strongly that they were hard done by. They've got a chip on their shoulder, probably going to be a little cranky about having to fly cross country for the third time in a week. So, they take that into it with them. But they have just as much on the line as we do with this Champions League spot. So, you can't sit back and think that they're going to do anything but come into the building on Sunday trying to embarrass us and take what's ours.
Now, Will, shifting gears here just a little bit, if you don't mind. You're obviously, since we have you on, you're the guy to talk to about roster personnel decisions within the Galaxy. A big time move that we saw just in the past few days is John McCarthy, former starting goalkeeper for the Galaxy, to New York Red Bulls. I just wanted to kind of get your thinking, your rationale behind that move. Obviously, it was an interesting situation with the three keepers that you had in camp, with JT Marcinkowski recently having a really good game against Colorado, proving that he's a strong backup. So talk me through that decision to send John McCarthy to Red Bulls.
Yeah, we definitely zagged from, I think, a traditional roster build and having three, I think, starting caliber keepers on our roster. The idea going into the season was that, Novak was going to be the number one guy, and J-Mac, who I've known for a long time now and have a lot of respect for. He's a great teammate, but he's also a big time competitor. And, we knew that he wanted to be in a starting situation. And so I think going into the season, we sort of anticipated that we'd move one of those two guys. And then we knew we had JT, who's a outstanding human being, great locker room guy, fantastic goalkeeper in the mix as well. And so, the idea was probably always that J-Mac would go and find somewhere where he could make his mark and play. And then I think the way the season unfolded, where after a few games early and with Champions League, we wound up with a bit of a goalkeeper rotation, which kept J-Mac, with us for longer, which again is not a bad thing because he's such a great teammate. But, in the window, things come up. And Red Bull had a real need for their backup keeper when their backup went down in the Open Cup. And, it's never perfect in this world, but J-Mac being from Philly, Jackie, his wife, is from Long Island. And, you never want to say goodbye to a guy, but if you can send him somewhere where he can be closer to home, have a chance to compete, you feel good about it. And so, we spoke with J-Mac beforehand, and it was clearly something that he was interested in. And, I just told him, hey, look, go there, do what you did here, do what you did at LAFC, go win the spot, go be a great teammate, and really happy for he and Jackie and their two young kids. But, we'll miss him. He's a champion. He brings incredible tenacity and leadership on and off the field.
Now, speaking of strong performances in the Colorado game, I mentioned the Colorado game. You guys pulled up Chris Rindolph from Ventura County FC, essentially Galaxy 2. I wonder what you saw from him in the Colorado game, and is this someone that you could see getting more minutes, maybe more frequently going forward?
No, definitely. Chris has been a great success story for us, and not just, I think sometimes people think soccer operations is just the first team, but it's a whole organizational wide effort. And so it's a huge credit to Gordon Kleshton and Oliver Curry, who do a lot of work closely with the second team to find Chris. He's obviously got a Kansas City pedigree, but I'd liken him to a guy like Isaiah Parente, a guy who's been around, hasn't clicked with maybe the club he came up with, but still has a lot of quality, a lot to offer. We've been lucky enough to have Chris in a lot of first team trainings over the last few weeks. So we got to see it, firsthand. I mean, apart from getting to see him regularly at Ventura County, and he's a guy who brings an incredible work ethic. I mean, he's in the gym every morning, 7:30, 7:45, hours before first team guys are getting in. If you're lucky enough to be in the building when he's doing his pregame warm up on the field, it is meticulous. And impressive. He's jumping, he's lunging, he's moving, and so he's a guy who takes his craft very seriously, puts his head down, does the work, and I think you got to see that in Colorado. That without Maya, with Emmy being banged up, Chris comes in and really holds it down in a strong way, and so it's a testament to what the work that's been done on our second team, our coach there, Matt Taylor, keeping Chris going, getting him ready for the next the next call, whenever it might be. And so, yeah, we're really pleased with Chris, and don't necessarily want to tip our hand too far, but certainly think he's a guy who's got first team potential and can really help an MLS roster.
Well, look, there's definitely been a change since obviously the really tough start for you over the course of the first 15 matches or so of the season. 4-4-3 in MLS play, a great run that's still continuing in Leagues Cup since that winless run to start the season. Are you starting to see flashes of last year's MLS Cup winner? Obviously, it's tough without Riqui in the lineup, but are you starting to see them kind of round back into form for what you saw a little bit last year?
Yeah, I think what I'd probably say is less seeing last year's team, but more seeing the team that we thought this year's team could be. The different pieces coming together. It's been choppy at times, but there's also no substitute for contact hours and time. And so, when you have guys who, for different reasons, show up very late in the preseason, whether that's a guy like Lucas Sanabria, whose contract negotiations drug on, or Nascimento, who was a replacement for a late sort of offseason move in the sale of Dejan Joveljic. It takes time, especially when you're coming from a different country. Elijah Winder coming from the USL, was here for the start of the preseason, but it's a different level. And so it does take some time for these guys to acclimate, get used to each other, get used to the league. And I think in the Colorado game, you got to see a little bit of that rapport between those guys as they sort of start to establish themselves and feel a little more comfortable. So it's a good reminder that when you do zag and you do go younger in a roster turnover, it does take time. Guys need to come together, and it's a process. But yeah, I think last year's team was a different animal. When you got Riqui and you got Dejan, it's a different dimension. But this year's team can be a little more, I think, athletic out of possession, a little more dynamic, in transitions. But you get to see sort of little sparks of it. So I think it's more the team we were expecting to see in 2025.
So you mentioned Riqui right there. So we'd be remiss not to ask you if you can give an update to the fans of the Galaxy who are obviously anxiously waiting for Riqui to take the field again. Where are we at? Can you share anything?
Look, Ricky's progressing well in his rehab. If you look at the timing of it, anybody who does their ACL in late November and gets surgery in early December is going to be, I think, questionable for a return in the following season. And so the most important thing for us is that Ricky's fully healthy going into 2026. And if that means that he's available for some minutes down the stretch, that's great. But we certainly don't want to find ourselves in a position where we feel like we're putting him and his recovery at any kind of risk. We can explore different avenues for getting maybe extra matches in the off season to keep him topped up and get him back on the field. But I think there's a emotional piece which is important to Riqui, his teammates, of just seeing him back on the field. But then there's also the physical piece of making sure he's 100%. So he's progressing. His rehab has hit another gear. I think over the last month or so, as he's I think can kind of feel how close he is to return. So he's pushing it. And look, if you ask Riqui, I think he'd say he's ready to be on the field this weekend. And it's our job to kind of hold him back a little, make sure he's 100% before we put him out there. But it's really just a kind of calendar timing thing of when he'll be back. And so, he's right on time, right on target. It's just the nature of when he got hurt makes it, it was always going to be kind of, late September, early October for a comeback. And again, the most important thing for us is that we just have a good plan for him to be ready and fully healthy by 2026. So that might be a little bit of a non-answer, but progressing well, and then we'll see.
Well, listen, on a morning where you could have given us a lot more not answers after a rough result, and honestly, it's been a little bit of a tough season. We so appreciate you, Will, general manager of the LA Galaxy, and now part of the Soccer in 60 family, Will Kuntz. Will, thank you so much for joining us early this morning on Soccer in 60.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care, man.
All right.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, guys. Thanks.
Will, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
And there you have it, Tim. I mean, kudos to Will Kuntz for standing up in front and really taking, look, we didn't quite ask him maybe some hardball questions that we maybe could have, but look, we appreciate Will Kuntz coming on. Absolutely loved him. It was really great again for the Galaxy GM, Will Kuntz, to come on.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And so with that, let's move on over to Orange County. Yeah, Orange County. This is a tough one over the weekend there, Scarf, buddy.
A tough one for sure. Let me just say, first and foremost, Stephen Kelly, my man, we know you're a big fan of the pod. We so appreciate you coming on last week. Soccer in 60 family now. But you played 205 matches before coming to Orange County. Never found yourself in the sin bin with the red card. You came and played six league matches for Orange County, and he's got 2. Tim, do you have any words of wisdom for Stephen Kelly to maybe find that moment of zen so he stays in the matches for Orange County?
Yeah, a little bit. Now, the first one was, I kind of have to hand it to him. He didn't quite know what to do with himself, but he earned that first one. This second one, I tell you, man, the Orange County boys definitely played against 2 teams this weekend. They played against FC Tulsa. They played against the men in blue, man. I'm telling the red card that Stephen Kelly picked up. Now, again, I have the luxury of watching it 19 times on replay.
Right.
But even at full speed, when I first saw it, I thought, okay, yeah, foul, no problem. Borderline yellow. But when Mr. Referee pulls out the red card just 20 minutes into this game, that was really harsh. And if you listen, because on ESPN Plus, they were listening to they had the local broadcasters. Even the local guys were saying that it was harsh, and the local fans were booing the referee for this call. So unfortunately, that just a couple of minutes later, FC Dallas does take advantage because Orange County is kind of bewildered, and it's 1-0 in about the 24th minute. But I tell you what, Orange County, Danny Stone, Coach Stone had these guys playing at a very, very high level the rest of this match. And this could easily have been a draw for Orange County. And there was a couple of chances that went just wide. You only put two shots on frame. It's kind of hard, but the intensity was there for the County boys, Scarf.
Well, look, FC Tulsa playing up a man for 70 minutes. You really do have to hand it to Orange County. A 1-0 loss, but they played them to a standstill after they went down a man. So a lot to talk about there. Let me ask you real quick before we talk about Birmingham next Saturday at home. They flew to Pittsburgh and back, Colorado Springs and back, Tulsa and back, but they only took home 4 points from those 3 matches. What is there that they can take away from that big road trip as they're about to head back on another one, right? They've got Detroit, Lexington, and San Antonio after this match from Birmingham. What can they take away from this long road trip that they can use in this next one coming up soon?
I think a lot of what they have to take away from is how they played so well against Pittsburgh, against one of the leaders in the East, and how even at 10 men, they play FC Tulsa. See, Gunner caught me again, FC Dallas. They're not playing MLS, kind of like Galaxy's not playing Liga MX. They have to take away how well they did play, especially when they were down a man against Tulsa. They have to remember how they played against Pittsburgh. So when Birmingham comes in this weekend, Birmingham is only sitting 10th in the league, and they played 2 very playoff teams on the East already, so they can knock these guys out. And then when they go on this next road trip, they have to understand that, hey, this is what travel in America is like. Right. You talk to Stephen Kelly and he's like, yeah, we only flew around Scotland, which is the size of Orange County, right? Or Southern California. It's not very big. So that's what they're going to have to realize, that they're going to have to be a little bit more hydrated, take your SISs, and you're going to have to play well.
And listen, we can talk about what the heck Lexington, Kentucky is doing in the West anyway, next broadcast. But one of our most contentious segments, we all know it and love it here on Soccer in 60 as Best 11. And kudos to Gunner, our creative director. It is actually a true 11 this week, unlike the 12 that we had last week. Something that clearly didn't change from last week, though, Tim. In goal, Hannah Siebert once again for an incredible performance against Orlando Pride. The defenders, the back line of Mickey Yamane and Sarah Gordon, two names we know, and Chris Rindov, who came up and played an excellent 90 minutes for the Galaxy against Colorado. Mickey wearing the captain's armband for the Galaxy against their efforts against Colorado. All of Angel City's players, by the way, it's for their efforts against Orlando. And then in the midfield, you got a trio of Galaxy players for what they did against Colorado. Elijah Winder, Harbor Miller, and Tucker Lepley. Certainly not household names at the start of the season for Galaxy, but making LA's best 11 on this one. And then Madison Hammond and Kennedy Fuller for Angel City against Orlando. Alyssa Thompson at forward, the only goal scorer in the Angel City Orlando match. And no surprise here, Son Heung-min for the wonder goal against FC Dallas, actually playing FC Dallas, right, Tim? In that one. In case you're keeping track, that's 5 for Angel City, 5 for Galaxy, just 1 for LAFC. And being the LAFC supporter, I got to tell you, I don't disagree with that one. I don't think very many players from LAFC maybe played well enough to warrant a best 11 spot on this one. But let me ask you first and foremost, Tim. Hannah Siebert has been a revelation now. 2 matches, 2 clean sheets for Angel City. She may be a fixture on this best 11 for the next few weeks.
I think so. I think this is one of those players that Strauss saw over in Europe quite a bit. She wanted to come home, and he made the deal, and now she's started the last 2 matches, and I think it's going to be hard to unseat her just because, well, she hasn't given up a goal yet. So, let's see. Keep shutting all the other teams out. We don't score very much. Let's see. You're going to stay in goal. We're going to make the playoffs, with 6 goals in the next 9 games, and we're going to be just fine. I think you're right. I think Hannah's going to stay on this list consistently for Angel City, especially if she continues the way she's playing like this.
Yeah, massive kick save in that one against Orlando. Alex Strauss was all about it. Let me ask you, too. We know a lot of household names that are on this list, obviously, with Kennedy Fuller, Alyssa Thompson, obviously Son Heung-min. But if you look at the Galaxy, if I would have told you at the start of the season that making the best 11 this week would have been Chris Rindov, Elijah Winder, Harbor Miller, Tucker Lepley. I mean, these sound like guys who are auditioning to play a Galaxy player in Hollywood versus actually being a Galaxy player. What does it mean to show the depth of the organization that way for players who definitely didn't resonate on the radar at the start of the year?
Yeah, this is one of those things where you watch a guy like Harbor Miller that got in 5-6 games early in the season, and then he has an absolute wonder goal, because he doesn't pull a SpongeBob SquarePants and flop like a fish on the deck. He gets up, races back down, and takes that beautiful cross and puts it into the back of the net for the game winner against Colorado. The depth that the Galaxy have, and Kevin Baxter mentioned it, it's far superior than most other teams have, and especially in the Western Conference.
Listen, far superior is Soccer in 60, the fastest paced soccer podcast in the Southland. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast wherever you access it. And again, this has been another wonderful episode of Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System.